All right, welcome to the March 28th Planning Commission meeting for the City of Travelers Rest. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, we'll take a roll call of members present, starting on my right. If you would state your name, please.
Tony Rackley.
Michelle Garrison.
Rebecca Cooper.
Diane Maxwell.
Brian Hafey.
We do have a quorum. We will begin with the review and approval of minutes from our last scheduled meeting on November 29th, 2022. We received these earlier in the week via email, so I hope you've all had a chance to look at them. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes as presented?
A motion to approve.
Tony and Michelle, thank you for that second. Any discussion? If not, I would like to call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. This motion is carried by unanimous vote. Item 2 is the review of a final development plan for the Pinestone Plan development on State Park Road. Staff will provide the commission with an overview of the request as well as next steps. All right, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what you have before you is a final development plan for a 4+ acre portion of the Pinestone Plan development. This portion is located at the corner of State Park Road and Lumpkin Street. And it's in accordance with the Pinestone Plan development, preliminary development plan and statement of intent, which was approved, recommended for approval by Planning Commission and approved by City Council in 2022. The reason it's before you is that in our zoning ordinance, there's a requirement that no building permit or certificate of occupancy shall be issued in any PD district until the Planning Commission, acting upon the recommendation of staff, has approved and has approved a final development plan. So that's what you have before you. Staff has reviewed based on criteria as set forth in section 513.9 of the Travelers Rest zoning ordinance. And after review, staff has found that it is substantially in compliance. The final development plan is substantially in compliance with the preliminary development plan. Therefore, Planning Commission, moving forward, the Planning Commission, acting upon the recommendation of the planning staff, may approve or disapprove this final development plan submitted by the applicant. You may also require any such design modifications as necessary to assure compliance with the approved preliminary development plan. In the event that the Planning Commission finds that the final development plan is not in accordance with the approved preliminary plan, it shall disapprove of the final plan. And once it is approved, or if it is approved, it would then be the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that the FDP as submitted and the statement of intent are recorded properly with the Greenville County Register of Deeds. And once again, this review is only for the portion of the Pinestone PD under consideration, that being the 4+ acre former warehouse site, as approved by Council via Ordinance O-09-22. And based on our findings, staff recommends approval of the final development plan as presented with 2 conditions. One condition being that the proposed sidewalk along the eastern side of Lumpkin Street should be revised to a multi-use pathway. And in addition, the proposed mid-block crossing that's shown across Lumpkin Street at the southwest corner of this particular FDP should be removed. Those 2 changes would be in conjunction with each other, and we feel this would enhance the usability and safety of the entire road network for this PD. And the second condition being that all signage must be reviewed and permitted at the time of permitting. And that concludes our report.
All right, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any particular questions for Mr. Foreman? We've had a chance to look at this for the last few days. Would our applicant like to share any insight? Or kind of give us just an update on what I know we talked before about kind of what we thought this might end up being, so are we still kind of in that
Certainly.
food hall kind of?
So I'm Jeff Randolph, 607 Pendleton Street, Greenville. Act as developer for Pinestone. Also with me is Rob Couch with McMillan Paz & Smith, who's acting as the architect for this portion of Pinestone, and Jonathan Giles with Pinestone Builders, who would actually be contractor for these renovations. So I think you've got illustrative illustrations of these two buildings as well as site conditions, landscape plan. So hopefully it is in conformance with what we talked about months ago. We're ready to move forward as now with this work. It'll all happen at the same time. Parking lot would probably happen first, and then the buildings will catch up. So
What's
happy
the
to.
time frame on that?
We have the parking lot portion. The parking lot land was actually under an original land disturbance permit that was attached to the mixed use at Pinestone. So we've submitted that to the county for their review and approval. And so as soon as that's approved, which is probably 45, 60 days, we're ready to start on that. And then while that's going on, you'll have a full architectural package for the two buildings and any improvements around those two buildings. And then with the contractor already on board, I mean, I would think that by the time that review would take, what, 3 months for building permit? So if we submit in May, end of the summer, we should have a permit and then ready to start construction. I would think that construction would take 8 months. So sometime, this time next year, you're actually seeing something coming together.
So without divulging anything, or are you in discussions with any proprietors to fill the space, or any good feeling that you're?
I mean, I think we have a good feeling that the upper building is intended to be more of a food hall concept. The lower building is more, could be food, will be offices, retail. There's a lot of conversation. Some of that I'm not really part of. I'm just supposed to execute and turn over keys. But I know that there's an awful lot of conversation. But until you get your final numbers in, you really can't quote. It'll all be lease space, so it's hard to quote a lease price until you have your final pricing, which is dependent upon architecture, so it's just kind of a rolling. But we do have an awful lot of interest.
And they both sides should be completed about the same time, or
Yeah,
will one?
it'll all be done at the same time because the site work, the driveway that runs behind the building and those improvements in front and then the common space that's in between would be done together. And then you would have upfit of some of that space inside. So when you have, depending upon the user, then you would do the upfit for that space.
Perfect. Any other questions?
I remember the one question we did have and we left it with was just the parking issue. That was the big kahuna, was the parking going to be substantial enough in that particular location? Was that resolved as far as?
I think so. So the parking that's shown on that,
Right.
your plan,
Yes.
equals what we had anticipated. So there's X number of spaces on site, most of that in that parking lot. And then we also can have off-site parking that could be next door, could be across the street if we need it. Now, some of that parking is dependent upon the tenants that you get. So some tenants require, a food tenant would require more, restaurant requires more. But I think we've estimated a percentage of potential users and satisfied that with the city.
Any other questions?
And hopefully we'll have a bunch of people just walking.
Yeah.
So,
Hearing no more questions, do I hear a motion to approve this FDP with the conditions as presented?
Motion to approve.
I have a
I'll second.
motion, and I have a second.
Madam Chair, who made that motion? No, I'm sorry.
Diane,
Thank you.
and Tony had the second. I have a motion by Commissioner Maxwell and a second by Commissioner Rackley. All in favor of approving this motion, please indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. This motion is carried by unanimous vote. Thank you. Item 2 is new business, is a request from Pinestone Opportunity Fund to make minor revisions to the Pinestone Plan Development on State Park Road and Row Road. Staff will provide the commission with an overview. So, Mr. Foreman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, Pinestone is before you, the Pinestone PD. This request is approval of some minor changes to the Pinestone original PD statement of intent. in accordance with the Pinestone Plan Development, Preliminary Development Plan and Statement of Intent as approved by City Council via Ordinance O-03-19. And I attached a list of changes to the report. It's labeled Item A. A little bit of background, the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance requires any minor changes to a planned development district may be approved by the plan, or must be approved by the Planning Commission, acting upon the recommendation of staff, provided that no minor change may be approved by the Planning Commission, which is in conflict with specific conceptual considerations previously contained in the City Council's preliminary approval, the one I mentioned earlier from 2019. So based on our findings, staff recommends approval of the minor changes as discussed in Item A to the Pinestone Plan Development. These changes are of a design nature and do not alter the original concept or use characteristics of the approved Pinestone PD. And we do mention that any additional changes to the PD after this point will require subsequent review and approval by the Planning Commission as well. And that ends my report.
All right, thank you. Does any commissioners have any questions regarding this
I do.
change?
On the minor change list, it says elimination of 5-foot sidewalk along Row Road. Isn't there a sidewalk there currently?
So that was initially, the initial conceptual considerations were for a 5-foot sidewalk plus a 10-foot multi-use path. We felt that was redundant, so the 5-foot sidewalk was taken away, and it's just the pathway now, the larger path.
thought
Correct.
I walked down it the other day.
Yes.
And the greenway was originally asphalt and the sidewalk was concrete, so we just made the greenway concrete.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any questions? Anyone else? Thank you. All right, I have a motion, or hearing no more questions, do I hear a motion that these minor changes be approved as presented?
I make a motion to approve.
For a second?
That's second.
Right. So I have a motion made by Commissioner Garrison and seconded by Commissioner Rackley. All in favor of approving this motion, please indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. This motion is carried unanimously. Thank y'all very much for being here. We appreciate it. Looking forward to it. All right. Our next item of new business is the comprehensive plan for the City of Traverse West was last completed in 2018. As per state law, the Planning Commission is tasked with to review this document at least every 5 years and update it at least every 10 years. Staff will provide us with details moving forward, so.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So.
Thank you,
losing all-
ma'am.
Losing all of our crowd. This is the exciting part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So TR will have the opportunity to begin review of the plan at the April 25th meeting, but I wanted to bring this to your attention now, just so you have the ability to kind of refresh yourself on the plan itself, which was initially approved in 2018. State law requires that it be reviewed at least every 5 years and then updated every 10 years. So we're on that 5-year review timeline right now. So what I plan to do is over the next few months bring you a few chapters at a time. It's a 10-chapter. It's 10 chapters right now. The comp plan itself made up of 10 elements. So I plan to bring you a few each month to review. We can make necessary changes that we see fit. As the Planning Commission, you have the authority to recommend those changes. City Council would then be the one that votes on it, has the final decision. But the idea being that we would be able to review this by the end of the year. So it would have to go through, at some point, the Planning Commission, if they felt comfortable with it, after we do this multi-month review, would resolve to move it forward to City Council for approval, that the Planning Commission has duly reviewed it and made changes as necessary, and then City Council would approve it at 2 subsequent meetings thereafter. So we would need to get that done by the end of 2023. So I'm anticipating a roughly 6-month process to review, and then get it before council, if not October, then by November, so they have the opportunity to vote on it twice, November and December.
Public comment at council.
Yeah, so there'll be, and I will build into this process multiple opportunities for the public to comment, and that's a big part of the plan. So yeah, that's a great question. And I'm currently looking at different ways to solicit public comment via, either SurveyMonkey or something along those lines, just to get additional comment from community members.
It might be a good idea too, I was just thinking, since it's spring and summer, is to do a kiosk, TR kiosk at the farmer's
At the
market
farmer's
on
market.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you'd have you'd probably get way more,
But it can only be city,
yeah, but still, I mean, you'd have to make
Ultimately.
that condition
they'd have to show their
known,
ID or
but-
whatever.
Yeah,
You
we would hope that it would be just city folks, but we would like to hear, I would assume that people that are coming into the city are doing so because they like it here, so there might be a chance for them to extol the virtues, and I wouldn't want to turn their opinions away either way, even if they had something negative to say. But I agree, there should be some way to verify that they are, or at least have them check a box that they are a city resident.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get too
Formal.
deep into that, just
Yeah,
to kind of a good.
Take them
Right,
at their
yeah.
word, yeah, that,
Right.
yeah, I'm a city resident,
in.
check box here.
Yeah.
But I do believe when we did the 2018, that was a huge update.
Yes,
And there were a lot of opportunities for participation in that. And it did include some input from folks who either own or operate a business here but don't necessarily live here. So that is important too.
Yeah.
So we create those opportunities for them to have an input as well.
yes, absolutely.
Because we hear a lot about, I own a business here, why can't I vote here? Well, you vote where you sleep. That's what I always tell people.
Right.
They think that's something unique to us, and it's not. So
Not
it's
just
always,
the
there's
TRT.
always an educational opportunity there.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
But this
and I-
one is not as entailed because we are at a review, although we can make changes, but it's not
Not a new one,
right.
correct. So yeah, we're not starting from scratch here, so
Right.
We have
that's
a
the difference.
census since this last one, I mean, because I know the population's changed in the last.
We do, we have a new census, and so the census obviously happened in 2020. A lot of different things happened in 2020 that
Right.
kept the
Yeah.
census from being what it would normally be. So,
Right.
but we do have that information available. I'm working through I'm troubleshooting some ideas on how to make the caveat that the 2020 census isn't like a normal census.
Right.
And the good news is that the ACS, American Community Survey, occurs every year. That's sort of like the Census Light.
Right.
And that does happen every year. So
So
we
it
have
captures some of the-
up-to-date, we have some numbers from there that we can utilize as well. So there's ways to kind of work around that.
And can we project out to Pine Stone and some of these other
Yes.
things that we have coming?
Yes, absolutely. And I keep I've been doing this for, since my last job with Anderson County when I was the planning director there. I'm just putting together, I'm an economist at heart, so I'm putting together, and I have sort of an econometric way of looking at this, that we know we have X number of people as of the census. We have these number of new rooftops that are in play.
Right.
2.51 people per household. There's ways to kind of figure out what we anticipate over the next few years. So yeah, I have been putting some of those numbers
Because
together.
we're looking out 10 years?
Yeah, this would look out, this would be a 10-year plan. yeah.
So I'm just thinking, it's going to be a little different.
Yeah, and the numbers jump out at you when you really start to look at it that way. So, there's obviously,
Just what we've approved in the last.
yes, just looking at approved rooftops plus the existing population, which is
1,000.
7,700-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's going to be some increases in population if we don't do anything.
Right.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep, and then there's,
So,
I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry,
no.
just wanted to clarify, there is a quick outline that I put together of different things that we'll be looking at over the next few months. So if you think of anything, or if you see anything that looks out of place, or anything that I've missed, please, let me know, and we can add it. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any other business we need to discuss?
Yes, one thing I want to get on your radar, and
Okay.
this would be for the full commission to discuss. So currently, the Planning Commission holds meetings on the fourth Tuesday of every month. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission consider revising the remainder of the meeting calendars after April, because that one's kind of already in the books, but consider moving it to the fourth Thursday of every month. It doesn't sound like a big change, but to staff, it would be a huge change, because that gives us 2 extra days to review within our prescribed timelines for subdivisions and for zoning requirements. And when I say staff, I mean me, because I am the entire planning staff. So those extra 2 days would definitely come in handy. You know, if you don't see a good reason to move it to Thursdays, then that's fine. We can keep moving forward with the Tuesdays. But I just wanted to put that on your radar and potentially have that come up for a vote next month in April.
Anyone have any standing, anything that would cause an objection for that? Okay. Good to move forward with the vote next month.
Okay, great. I'll get it on the.
That be going forward even into the next year, or just?
Yeah, that would be
Forever forward.
moving forward, yes. So, and we also, and something that is not in here, it's not in our bylaws, and the last time the bylaws were updated was 2021, so maybe that would be a good time to revise those bylaws and then add that into it. So I'll get that in front of you as well in April for review.
And a complete set of bylaws might be nice.
It would be very nice, yes, and we will get that. Absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions or anything from anybody? All right. I will unofficially, well, let's adjourn the meeting and then I'll tell y'all something. Okay. Hearing no more discussion, I'd like to call for a vote to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Okay. So the last time we met, y'all met in November. I don't